first hit on paper, and it was called the computer dot or the spot or the acid on paper, and it was done on chromatography paper that was used for litmusing, and that's why it looks, after all these years, this is from the 60s, all these years, it still looks lily white. The chromatography paper was very hard to get, and it used to be arranged in a little 5x20 setup where 5 of these would go in a row, and then down 20 times, so there would be 100 doses on a little strip of paper. Each dose was 1,000 lines, so they were considered 4 waves. The first grams of LSD being divided into 4,000 hits per gram. There's nothing's in order here, so we'll just keep moving. This is a close-up of the blotter sheet from the early 80s, and it's using a little image that you will see later, and it's from farm camp. Okay, thanks. Oh man.
Warning.
I came with a Mac program. This is a close-up of a cutaway diamond 4-way from the late 80s, late 70s. This is before the computer. Blotter was made by photographic methods, and this is the matrix used for the famous eye in the pyramid head. And this was very, very large. It was about 2 by 3 feet when they silk screened the original. And then they photographed it, reduced it, and pasted it up in a larger format, copied it, and reduced it again into 400 pyramids. This is how I feel about LSD. Yeah, I really don't think it's about love. I think love exists outside of LSD. This is a 400 block, back still when the grams were only 4,000 hits per gram. The standard being set really by Albert himself in the first experiment, and then propagated by Owsley. Here's a current thing you can buy on eBay, and I thought it was a really neat statement that Marcel Duchamp would enjoy. Here's a blotter collector nowadays with returning the stolen LSD to the people. A current novel featuring Blotter and the story of Albert Hoffman, done by one of pardon?
Do you know if there are more of those floating around?
I would ask John Hanna. He knows the fairy that made these. Here's a book you can get on eBay if you really know your way around eBay, and it's about the group of people who originate in San Francisco and decide that they're going to turn on the world with their magic papers. Very interesting little novel. But I wanted to just show you that blotter starting to appear on book covers and in places where in the 70s it was impossible to find. Even in the 80s, very rarely do you see any portrayals of blotter anywhere, because the DEA wasn't really aware of blotter paper for a very, very long time. And so now it's reemerging, and people are collecting it, putting it in other situations. situations. Here's a 1,000 hits of Jerry's Hand that are featured in a book called Zigzag Zen. And remained in late '98, busted on 20th and Valencia Street in San Francisco. Here's a vanity piece featuring, I call it vanity piece because it's blotter paper that isn't made with the intention of dipping it and distributing LSD, but more as a way of asserting your stance on the LSD question and as a way of turning it into an artistic statement rather than a commercial statement. This one's signed by Howard Marks, the famous marijuana dealer. This is currently available also on eBay, and it's a little outfit out of England that is trying to find classic blotters and then reinvent them. This one being the famous Mickey's Fantasia that was originally dipped in Sandoz acid. Also available on eBay, a man, let me see, are you here?
Yeah.
What's your name?
William Rafferty.
William Rafferty sells these on eBay, and they're a takeoff of the Stars and Waves from the early '80s. And I thought, oh boy, this is incredible. Somebody's selling these and advertising these when 20 years ago, this would get you certainly a sentence. Oh, this one seems to be moving, and it's probably is. Also available at eBay, and it's part of the Vanity series, which has multiple uses. In black, if your sauce is black. A recent release from the Acid Test 40 in Las Vegas is featuring rather a melting Uncle Sam. This one just got busted, and what's very interesting about it is that the little beetle was sold as a vanity blotter, and so then somebody's going and buying them off eBay and then dipping them. So then they exist both as vanity, or they were created as vanity, but then some enterprising young person. Here's something you'd never see in the old days, is someone putting their name on a sheet of blotter. This one being, a fabulous effort to raise money for this and that. This one by artist Mark Mothersbaugh from Devo fame. Is taking a stance and saying, yes, I believe in acid. The famous local artist, Jagger. And this is his second piece. He did another blotter sheet, one of which Albert signed. I guess he signed 3 of them, and if you can grab one, get it. His first piece, 1,000 hits. Stanley Mouse recent piece, and Stanley for years his image has been stolen and used on blotter, and then Stanley said, well, why don't I start doing it myself? This is his 3rd issue. The great artist Jim Thirlwell, whose band Scraping Fetus Off the Wheel is featured. Also taking a stance saying, yes, acid's for me. Alex Gray, coming out of the closet. His first blotter, as a vanity piece, that is. Some kind of weird relationship going on here. One of my favorite, Mark Ryden from Southern California, with his portrayal of Satanic's Majesty's Request. The Kesey family that still survives. This one by Zane. He remember this one?
It's Trevor Brown.
Trevor Brown doing a portrayal of Blotter, which is, you know, maybe she's a little underage, but at least she's picking it. The incredible Mind Stage Blotter by Stevie Postman. This one signed and numbered by the great master himself. Nothing says I do like a piece of Albert Hoffman blotter hanging over the bed. One of the earliest vanity blotters, and it was done by writer, cook, and entrepreneur Tom Lionel, who did 6 early blotters in the mid-90s and had celebrities sign them, like Laura Huxley, Tim Leary, even Allen Ginsberg signed some, the Shulgins, many other famous Illuminati. And I heard that John Beresford, our pinnacle of fortitude, John Beresford is selling these signed ones by the Huxleys and others. And he's giving the money for the prisoner as a LSD fund. He'll be here tomorrow with his blotter selling, if you'd like some. You can't think of a better cause. This was in a CD in the early 90s, and the musician put it out without thinking there'd be any problem, and then people started getting arrested coming home from Tower Records with their unopened little CDs and having to wait sometime. One kid waiting in Texas for 2 weeks till they analyzed the stuff. I forget his name. Richie Hawkins. This is an early, also early vanity blotter. By Hunter S. Thompson, celebrating Timmy's return to the egg. Fred Tomaselli, famous New York artist, also famous drug artist, who put a perf sheet of blotter on one of his art catalogs in the late 80s. This is the first hit I ever saw on blotter with an image. And it was a 4-way, printed both sides. I scarfed the one I had, so I never found another real one, but I was in Texas doing a blotter show, and I went to the record store on a Rocky Erickson picture album. There was one pasted up on there, and I remembered it. Oh, I'm sorry. Here's the Matrix. I took that from Rocky's record. The real king of rock and roll, Rocky Erickson, the 13th floor elevator. Behind the OK, you'll see one of the first pieces of blotter portrayed in a movie, and it was a movie called starring Alba as a LSD chemist who's hiding in New Mexico. And when the FBI comes to arrest him, he serves them an acid-laced dinner and gets away to Mexico. And as he's leaving, he opens his drawer, and of course, it's the Ronnie Reagan blotter in there. Flirting with disaster, thank you so much. I have a photographic memory, they just don't make film for it anymore. This is the last piece of blotter busted by the forces of evil on Earth. It was in St. Martin's, a little Dutch island, in 2005. May his suffering be shortened by this meeting. real nice one coming out, current one, coming out of, I suspect, by Amsterdam, featuring their traditional little homes done in a new way. Something I haven't been able to identify yet because my eyesight hasn't gotten in there yet. But this may not be LSD. Pardon? Mescalina. But thank you so much. And so now there's other drugs taking place in the water. A very recent effort out of Texas. A boob. Also current. A couple of flies that I heard that these may not be LSD either. This was one I got at Bonnaroo in 2004. By the look of it, I think it's Archangel Gabriel because of the trumpet. It had no perf marks and it had a grid pattern on the back to cut along 100 hits of Gabriel. Also, from the previous year, 100 hits of white Tara, also on perf, printed, grid pattern printed on the back. A couple for his eyes. 1,000 cherubs out of San Francisco, 1998. Is that a Botticelli or is that a Botticelli? Anybody? Raphael? Okay, thank you. The back of a blotter piece showing what can happen to you if you don't take your acid. The front of that piece, dancing condoms. Instead of the regular 900 format that is ascribed to a square like this, this was released in 1998, and it was the first piece of blotter I've seen featuring the new 1024 hit pattern. I guess they have the extra 24 hits for the shop hands. The back of another piece of blotter. And the front of it, pink elephants from the Dumbo hallucination scene. Close up. Now, this is, when you look up LSD FBI, that's what's featured on it right now. The famous Albert Hoffman bike ride portrait, re-released in the year 2000, first released in 1993. This is a close-up. Math being 25 hit squares. Here's a full sheet of 500. Also from the same period out of the East Coast USA, Mars attacks. The back of a normal piece of blotter these days, instead of perfing, since everyone's very aware of that Ed Francosa, the DEH in charge of blotter studies, who's been at it diligently since 1982, has associated all blotters by studying the machine tool marks left on the paper, disregarding the artwork entirely, and numbering all perf boards patterns that are captured. And so then they're starting to align perfing patterns. So a lot of people don't perf anymore, they just print a grid on the back, like the early days before they had figured out perfing. Pirated Alex Gray with the grid on the back. Another one. These coming out of Canada in around 1997. Very unusual to see an effort out of the frozen few. Some kind of missionary position. And this blotter I thought was significant because you rarely want to trip on the president or his mistress, but I think it's really that love conquers all is why this is made. Here the grid's been moved to the front of the piece of paper. Also the Canadian cartel. This actually came off a video game, I figured out. Not Mars Attacks, the one with the insects. Stormtroopers. Stormtroopers, also in the little 100 format here rather than the large 1,000 block. Salvador Dali, heavily ripped off and enjoyed by everyone. Here we move into Europe, and we're talking about 94 in memory in film. Really unusual to see Europeans paying tribute to the California artist. This being a local artist, I believe, and also released around 94. Silver Surfer, they call her sometimes. These are 500 blocks. Coming out of Amsterdam in the early 90s, these blotters were busted and pizza cutter handled instead of a perfect board. These were laboriously cut by hand. Also the re-release of Mickey's Fantasia. Re-release of the Dutch Beavis and Butthead coming out about 4 years after the American piece. A very beautiful piece out of Amsterdam, featuring Saturn, a recurring image in LSD. And this one being beautifully perfed and done in black light inks, so it glows whether it's loaded or not. Very interesting piece. First one I've ever seen that instead of trying to hide the black quality of the crystal being used to dip it in, is celebrating the occurrence of what is known as black lightning acid, which comes in liquid form and is very, very dark in color. About a third cheaper than the other one, though. Not just criminals make blotters, this one being done by Interpol and Scotland Yard in the early 90s to entrap me. And they brought it over to my house and said, "We got a lot of blotter, if you give us the crystal, we'll make a lot of money." I said, "If you got a lot of blotter, I'll give you $5 a sheet, you'll make a lot of money." A very rarely seen piece of a beautiful, beautiful man who's been able to join us here tonight. Kevin, could you take him out? Kevin's a recently released prisoner. One more. Another one back on our side, guys. Go easier this time, Kevin. The full sheet. He even got the date right. What was up? 6 for 9.
Well, you've got the MBT.
1,000 mushrooms.
The other 3,000.
Sorry. 1,000 hidden mushrooms, beautifully executed out of Amsterdam, mid-90s, I suppose. The recurring image of stars coming out of Europe. I guess we're moving backwards in time here, but hey, we're used to that. The incredible Tintin, the close-up, the full sheet. Ants or ohms, the close-up. Full sheet. The back of a sheet of blotter, making it easier by the color patterns to break it up into 100 or 50 blocks in the dark, near the bathroom there. This being the front, and then it's an unusual thing, it's actually a fractal of South Africa, and it's when Mandela won the presidency, and Tim signed this one. This is the other effort by the same outfit that same year. And it's called Human Hive, and it also had that same pattern on the back. Not a good idea to make fun of the FBI. This is called FBI Mandalas. My last bus, this was the first piece they took off the wall to analyze. A close-up of Carlos Soul Slinger's incredible art piece, featured on a sheet of blotter, known as Liquid Sky. Full sheet. Also done by the same scallywags that did the FBI logo. This one being done on a very nice cotton paper. The red paper is not recommended, however, because it does leave residue in the pan, red residue in the pan. This is the original stat that the Soul Slinger sheet came from. I was able to acquire it, and they told me they photographed it off a skateboard shop in New York City. A cut along from the early 90s, a little regression and paying homage to the Red Dragon hit from 1979. Moons, banana moons in fact, on black paper to conceal the darkness of the crystal. Full sheet. A condor flying over the Andes, the only bird that can. Mad Hatter. These all date from the early 90s. 1,000 musical notes with skulls. This is Tim Leary's funeral piece. And it says SMI squared LE, which was a theory he had about evolution. And then he is returning home as the color that is the note, that is Tim Leary. And rainbow bridging back right away. You can see a little death's head on his shoulder. Victor Vassarelli, early 90s. Heavenly Blue Planet, done to raise money for Tim's funeral. Kevin's partner, when Kevin got busted in London, Kevin's partner in America re-released one of Kevin's old pieces by slapping a border on it and putting it out as a 900 block instead of a 400 block. Is that right, Kevin? Apparently so. Did you know about it? Now you know. It's better to know. Kevin's original piece. This is the first piece of blotter Albert Hoffman ever signed. And through a series of finaglings, Tom Lytle got Albert to sign, I think, 17 of them in 1994. And then Albert sent them to Tim Leary, and Tim Leary signed them. And they've been floating around ever since for big bucks. These being inspired, I believe, by something Kevin read about the bloodline of Christ or some such thing. The famous Escher heads printed both sides in a 50 block, an unusual 50 pattern, but repeating the 5 by 20 computer pattern established in the late 60s. A Jesus blotter, the smaller format, 100 hits of Jesus. And the larger format, 900 hits of Jesus. The problem with these formats is that when you're trying to do a gram of acid to 10,000 hits and you only got 900 formats, you always end up with like a little extra square at the end. So then with this format, you can do 11 900s and 1 100, and you're in there. Alice in Wonderland, escaping from Operation Looking Glass, an operation by the DEA that ended in my first arrest and first acquittal, and so then when I got out, I said I better do a blotter. First side, second side, no, first side, and here's the back. And I made her crawling through the little piece of paper and getting away. Miracle. But Felix the cat, when he's in a fix, he opens his bag of tricks. The first Beavis and Butthead, the 900 block too. The regular logo having changed to like acid rules on a t-shirt instead of AC/DC. Rolling Stones acid from the early 90s. The tribute to Nicky Sands acid, Born Sunshine from the early 90s. A picture of the great, recently departed Acid Eric, may live forever. The Goa Gill's in that photo too. An early Goa Gill. And one of Acid Eric's masterpieces, the Gorbachev. This piece is the piece. This is the Gorbachev that broke the wall down, not the other Gorbachev.